Morning, everyone. Morning. So we're doing a series called Holy Health, and what we're basically saying is that your body may be your body, but how you choose to treat your body impacts the people you love the most and the relationships that you value the most. Whether you choose to pay too much or too little attention to your body, those choices don't just affect you. They affect the people with whom you live and with whom you are in relationship. And as we introduced this sensitive subject, we looked together at the Bible, and I think we were surprised to discover that God doesn't just care about our souls and our spiritual lives, He also cares about our bodies and our physical lives. And what we discovered was that what God wants for us is to honor Him with our bodies. And that was a biblical way of saying that as we do life, as we go to the gym or not, as we consume and expend calories, as we make deals, as we break hearts, as we watch movies, as we do all of that, we are to do it in such a way that says, as far as I'm concerned, God is an issue. God is a factor. God is to be taken into account. And we look together at this verse, remember? Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Then last Sunday we dug a little bit deeper into this and we looked at the eyes. And if we did a Billboard Top 100 of LifePoint YouTube videos last Sunday, we'd spin in straight at number 1. We have an online audience, as you know, and if everyone who looked online came to church, they wouldn't fit in. But last Sunday, for some reason, probably for guilty reasons, if everyone who watched our church service online came to church, they wouldn't fit into all of our cinemas combined. So clearly a lot of us feel that we could be doing better with our eyes. This week, we're going to carry on in that vein as we talk about our ears. So this morning, what we're thinking about is, how do I do Christianity with my ears? What are good ear choices for me? What are bad ear choices? And I'm acutely aware that this is a difficult subject to talk about because we all have selective hearing. And even if you're not willing to admit that you have selective hearing, you'll no doubt gladly concede that you're probably in a relationship with someone who most certainly does. Typically, we only hear the things that we want to hear, and we tune out the things that we don't want to hear. So on the one hand, there are people whom we listen to, and to whom we go for advice, because we know that they'll say the things that we want to hear. This is why at work, people who love to complain about the boss always seem to have coffee with other people who like to complain about the boss. Because they know that the conversation is going to be conducive to what they like to hear. This is why people who are cheating on their partners love to get advice from and comfort from other people who've cheated on their partners. This is what we do. We seek advice from people who are going to advise us to do what we've already decided to do. We're in constant search of a positive feedback loop. And that's fine, but one of the things it does, it consigns us to never being any smarter than we currently are, which for most of us is bad news. And then on the other hand, there are people to whom we do not go for advice because we know that they're going to have an opinion that is contrary to what we want to hear. And the reason we don't want to hear it is because it's not going to be what we've already decided to do. It's not going to be the same as what we already think. And we don't want to hear what's not the same. So those are some of the difficulties we're going to work through this morning. Let's have our first verse up on the screen and we'll get going. So we're looking at the strange part of the Bible you've probably never looked at before, 2 Chronicles chapter 18. In this story, there's a king called Jehoshaphat, of whom we are told he had great wealth and honor. So this is an Old Testament way of saying God liked him and he was a good guy. It's basically what that means. And then the story says that this good person had allied himself with Ahab, who in the story of the Bible God doesn't like very much, and he's a bad guy. So straight away what you have here in this story is a good guy who likes to do the right thing in some kind of a relationship with a bad guy who likes to do the bad thing. And then in the next sentence, Ahab invites Jehoshaphat over for dinner, and we're told that Ahab slaughtered many sheep and cattle. It occurred to me this week, for personal reasons, that the Bible really sucks if you're a vegan, by the way. I didn't notice that till recently. And during the course of this dinner, he urged him to attack a place called Ramoth Gilead. So you understand what's going on here. This is like the Amway conversation that you sometimes have with your friends, right? Ahab is a king. He wants to attack a town called Ramoth Gilead. And for him, this is a great opportunity. And he doesn't want to pursue this opportunity on his own. Oh, no, 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 no. He wants to share that opportunity with his friend Jehoshaphat, who's also a king, and with whom he has an alliance. So he wines him and he dines him for the purpose of persuading him to go to war. Next sentence. Halfway through the barbecue, Ahab closes in on the deal. He leans forward and says, "Okay, will you go to war with me against Ramoth Gilead?" Jehoshaphat replied, "I am as you are. Your people are as my people. We are paisan, we are partners, we are brothers. Of course I will go to war with you." Next sentence, just one condition. "First, let me seek the counsel of the Lord." Now notice the order in this sentence. In part A of the sentence, he's made a decision. In part B of the sentence, he decides to think about it. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Part A, I've made my mind up. Part B, I seek the voice of reason. Part A, I've made a decision. I've decided what I'm going to do. Part B, I try and figure out how this fits in with my faith and my life and all that. Do we not often find ourselves in this very sentence? I'm pumped about this. I'm excited about it. This is so awesome. How does it fit in with my life and faith? I'm definitely going to get into this relationship. Absolutely. And having decided that that's definitely what I'm going to do, then I'll seek the voice of reason and wisdom and faith. I've definitely decided I'm going to quit my job and pursue this business opportunity. And having decided that that's definitely what I'm going to do, then I'll seek the voice of reason and wisdom and faith. We do this, do we not? We make decisions, and then we have subsequent conversations. And in those conversations, we do not hear the voice of reason. And nor in our prayers do we hear the voice of God. All we hear is a projection of our own desires and our own wishes and our own thoughts. Have you noticed this? Not in your life, obviously, but in the life of a friend, an anonymous friend. They decided to do something alarmingly stupid, and then they prayed about it, and God agreed with them. It wasn't God, was it? It was you in your own head, in your own personal feedback loop. Now, in the ancient world, particularly in the Middle Iron Age where this story takes place, when you wanted to ask God about something, you couldn't just kneel down by your bed and pray about it. You would have to go and talk to someone who was trained in the art of knowing what God was all about. And those who offered this advice never did so casually, because the penalty for giving wrong advice was death, no pressure. So consequently, in the Iron Age culture of this story, the business of offering God-based advice and counsel was restricted to a group of people called professional prophets. People who were schooled and trained in the prophetic arts. So when Jehoshaphat says in this sentence, let's seek the counsel of the Lord, what he means specifically is let's go and talk to the prophets. Because they get it, they understand what's going on, and if anyone can be a voice of reason in this thing that we've already decided to do, it will definitely be them. Next sentence. So Ahab brought together the prophets, 400 of them, and he asked them, shall we go to war against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain? Now he's the boss, right? So you know how this sentence was phrased. Shall I do this? Or do you not agree? So obviously, instantly, the prophets start to agree. They say, go, do it, it's awesome, you're brilliant, everything you've ever decided to do actually is completely wonderful. And then Ahab turns to his friend and says, see, I told you so, it's the will of God. We decided, God agrees, it's going to be wonderful, let's go to war. Jehoshaphat feels a discordant note in his soul. He hears the advice of the 400 prophets, and he immediately says to Ahab, is there not a prophet of the Lord we can inquire of? In his heart of hearts, he seems to know he's in the wrong place listening to the wrong people. He knows that the 400 prophets who are advising Ahab to do what Ahab has already decided to do are on Ahab's payroll. They're not exactly unbiased. These are the guys who, whenever Ahab wanted someone to tell him how brilliant he was, he would go to them and said, who's the most brilliant of them all? And like the mirror on the wall, they would say, you're wonderful. That was their job. They lived by passing on advice that their boss wanted to hear. So Jehoshaphat's listening to this pep rally. He's listening to advice that concurs with what he already wants to do, and he's suspicious. He knows enough to know that the voice of the crowd isn't always the smartest. And we know this for certain today. We know that when a group of people come together to make a decision, every demon in the psychological pantheon is summoned. Groups survive by maintaining harmony. And so what happens when a group comes together to make a decision, you don't want to upset harmony. You don't want to look stupid. And so subconsciously, you as a member of the group, you look around and you tune into what the consensus is, and then you agree with that. And the only problem is, everyone else is doing that as well. So in 1961, when John F. Kennedy decided to invade Cuba, he surprisingly did so, tried to do so, with 1,400 untrained Cuban exiles. I'm no military strategist, but invading another country with 1,400 amateurs probably isn't the best idea. And it didn't work. Castro knew they were coming, they were outgunned, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. This led to Cuba aligning itself with the then USSR, almost started World War III. And what was amazing about that, dozens of books have been written on it, is that the people who made this alarmingly stupid decision were astonishingly intelligent men. You had a group of people in a room, each of whom were geniuses in their own right. But when they came together in a group, they suddenly became stupid. For every group to work, and if you're in management, you really need to listen to this. For every group to work, you need at least one awkward person. You just found your role in life. For groups to work, people in charge need to encourage dissent and alternative opinions. And if that can't be done, then at the start of every single meeting you have, you need to assign someone the role of awkward, the role of idiot. So in this story, you have 400 people, and they all know what the boss wants. And so they deliver the opinion that the boss wants to hear. But Jehoshaphat's like, yeah, I can hear what they're saying and I can see why they're saying it, but is there anyone else? Who's the awkward one in the room? Who's the most annoying person that doesn't care if they get fired? That no one likes to hear from? Where's that guy? I want to hear from him. King of Israel, rolling his eyes, I suppose, says, well, there is one man through whom we can inquire of the Lord. Look at the next sentence. But I hate him because he never says anything good about me. I hate him too. His name is Micaiah. In other words, there's this one guy, but there's no point talking to him because whenever I ask him anything, it's never good news. So I therefore don't ask him. So this is like 15-year-old teenage girl syndrome right here. She wants to go to her boyfriend's house to a party, and she knows no point asking Dad. Because I already know ahead of time that Dad's opinion is going to be in conflict with my opinion. I'll go ask Mum. Right? It's in the Bible. Genius. However, at Jehoshaphat's insistence, the one guy in the awkward squad is summoned. Next sentence. Look at the intimidation. Dressed in their royal robes, the king of Israel and the king of Judah were sitting on their thrones. It's almost like we want to intimidate you into saying what we want you to say. It's meant to be that way. You're meant to comply with the groupthink. That's how it works. Can you recognize that in your workplace, in your social setting? You're meant to fit in. You're meant to be like the rest. And so here we are in our big clothes, in our big chairs, in our imposing dais, to make you comply. And sure enough, there's 400 prophets prophesying before them. So this is like one of those rallies we see on television at election time, right? There's the guy at the front, and all the guys are in the room, and they're all saying what they're meant to say, right? So it's a room full of Trump people. And Trump's up the front, and everyone in the room has a Trump placard. And everyone's saying, go Trump, go. And no one has a placard that says, maybe this is a bad idea. Right? They didn't get in. So all of the energy and all of the emotion and all of the advice in the room is only pointing in one single direction. There is no alternative voice. This is the scene that Micaiah the awkward walks into. And then in verse 12, the messenger who'd gone to summon Micaiah said to him, look. That was exactly how he said it. Look. As one man, all the other prophets, like 400 of them, they're predicting success. Everyone else is saying this is a good idea. Everyone's on board. Basically, I don't know why you're here, but, they're all saying it. Everyone agrees, so, go on and just don't be awkward, all right? Just don't do your thing. Just whatever you do, don't be yourself. So when he arrived, the king asked him, Micaiah, shall we go to war against Ramoth-Gilead, or shall I refrain? Micaiah then says, attack and be victorious, for it will definitely work. And that's he says it in a sarcastic tone of voice. And I know he says it sarcastically because the king then asks him, what do you really think? That's what you're meant to say. Now what do you really think? And then he says what he really thinks. He says, well, what do I really think? I think I saw all Israel scattered like sheep. I think the Lord said to me, these people have no master. Here's what I really think. This is the worst idea you've ever had. This is a disaster. This is never going to work. You should stop thinking about what you're thinking about doing and think about something else. Because if you do this, you'll die. Instead, here's an idea. Let every person go home in peace. Do you understand the advice I'm giving you? Do not listen to what everyone else is saying. The group are wrong. They're giving you bad advice. Then he says, God has put a lying spirit in the mouths of these prophets. Here's the truth. Disaster is coming. You're listening to the wrong advice from the wrong people. Do you like it when people tell you that what you've decided to do is a bad idea? No. You react emotionally, don't you? So too Ahab. He hears what he doesn't want to hear. And so rather than saying, no, I shall consider that, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I am an idiot after all. He says, put this man in prison, give him nothing but bread and water until I return safely. Now, unfortunately, when people tell us things that we don't want to hear, we can't put them in prison. But we do hang up on them. We do refuse to read their emails. We do refuse to return their calls. Right? We see call display, we're going through a situation, we know what they're going to say, we don't pick up. This is where we live. Ahab is all pumped up to go, to do what he wants to do, and he tunes out the one voice that says what you want to do is actually a very bad idea. And similarly, we get so emotionally attached to what we've decided to do that we create a condition whereby it becomes difficult for us to listen to advice that runs to the contrary. And yet a good few of us, maybe every single one of us, can look back over bad decisions that we made, decisions that we ended up regretting, and somewhere in that decision-making process was a dissenting voice that we should have listened to, but we didn't. Because those persons spoke reason into our lives. Remember the guy who said, I don't know if you should lease that car, do you really need a Maybach? Like, should you really buy that house? You're not taking on too much. That relationship, I'm not sure that person's right for you. I don't know. Just something about it doesn't seem right. Remember that person who said those things? And in our heart of hearts, we knew they might have been right, but it was too late. Because we'd already made up our mind, and we weren't interested in advice. We just wanted someone to make us feel good about the decision we already made. And this is what's happening with Ahab. He knows in his heart of hearts that Micaiah is the voice of reason that should be listened to. But he does as we so often do. He ignores it. And so where God had said, do not go to Ramoth Gilead, we then read in verse 28 that he went to Ramoth Gilead. Skip to the end of the story. In one of the Bible's more unusual verses, we read that someone, doesn't matter who, drew his bow at random, so pathetic, so ordinary, and the arrow hit the king of Israel between his armor and he died. End of story. He didn't die from an arrow, the author is implying. He died from not listening. He died from being too obsessed in his own positive feedback loop. Here are the implications I get from this story for our ears. First of all, what we don't want to hear is generally what we need to hear. When we hear what we need to hear, even though it's not what we want to hear, we sometimes get our hackles up. We get all defensive. We come up with 25 reasons why our bad idea is actually the right idea. But in our heart of hearts, we know that what we don't want to hear is the right advice. So next time it comes to making a big decision, particularly one that will take your life in a new direction, and all of the energy and all of the emotion and all of the advice is pointing in one direction, and all of that happens to agree with what you actually want to do anyway. Give space in your life for what you don't want to hear. Because sometimes what you don't want to hear is exactly what you need to hear. Secondly, the voice of the many usually can't be trusted. Groups are stupid. You ever work in a team? You ever come together as like 10 people to try and make a decision? Alarmingly dumb oftentimes. And I think we've all had this experience. We're out with friends, right? And one of our friends announces that they've made a big decision. Like a life-changing one, like I'm leaving my wife, or I'm quitting my job to sell marshmallow sticks, or I'm leasing a new Maybach, or something like that. And as soon as they make their big announcement in a social setting, something within you says, ooh, I don't know if that's a good idea. Ooh. But because you're in a group, and all of the emotions are positive, and everyone else in the group seems to think it's a good idea, what do you say? Oh, you're leaving your wife. You're quitting your job to sell marshmallow sticks. You're leasing a Maybach that's going to cost you more than your monthly mortgage payments. That's a great idea, totally. Yeah, wow, awesome. And you get drawn into the energy of the group. And even though you know your friend is making a horrendous mistake, you find yourself verbalizing the opposite impression because it's hard to be the voice of reason. You don't want to look stupid. And even though we know that that exact dynamic exists, when we are making decisions of our own, what do? We take a straw poll of our friends who are just as dumb as we are. I went to Kelsey's with my girlfriends and they all thought it was a good idea. Everyone else liked them. The guy at the dealership said it was sensible. Must have been. Next time you're making a big decision, remember the 400. Remember how stupid groups can be. Remember that it's almost impossible in a group situation for someone to be awkward and say what needs to be said. And thirdly, I notice in the story that alliance always equals influence. Whoever you're in an alliance with, their words register with you the most. Whether it's marriage or a roommate or a business partner, if it's a guy you do deals with or socialize with, it's an alliance. And the people we have alliances with have influence on us. In large parts of the Old Testament, including the one we just read, are stories about the inherent dangers of being in the wrong relationships with the wrong people because of the influence that those relationships can have upon us. Some of the best decisions that we can make in life are decisions that involve saying goodbye to the people we need to say goodbye to, losing the friends we need to lose, losing the acquaintances that we should never have made in the first place. So let me wrap this up. Listen carefully. When we're in a conversation, whether it's with another human being, or whether it's with God in prayer, what we tend to listen to in that conversation is our own thoughts, to the words in our own heads. And we listen to that more than we listen to the words of the person with whom we are in conversation. Our listening is rarely more than an extension of our own ego. And for us to truly listen, we have to create a space in our life whereby we let the other person in. Right? If I'm going to listen to you, I need for a moment to put aside the words and the thoughts in my own head and the counter-arguments that are constantly forming in my own brain, and actually make space for you in my own head, and to truly make an effort to understand what it is you are saying. That is listening. And as we try to follow Jesus in a culture that says we should not follow him at all, we must, as Christians, make space in our heads to actually listen to the wisdom and the counsel of God's word. To make a decision to give room in our heads to good advice, be it from our holy book or be it from wise friends. That is how we do Christianity with our ears. That is how we honour him with that part of our body. Any questions? Please speak to us, because we are listening. Amen.